Hey there, how's it going, guys? So today is one of my favorite days as far as my training routine goes. Today is skill day. It's pretty much where there's no working sets, and a working set, just real simply put, is where you are trying to train until near failure, or you're trying to like you're chasing fatigue. You're trying to break down muscles, trying to break down those muscle fibers, and then when you rest and recover, your body builds them back a little bit stronger. And short and simple. That's why working out makes you stronger over time. But that is not the goal of today's workout. Today is skill day, and the goal of today's workout is to just practice the various skills that I work on throughout the week. And it's a day where I want to stay at as little fatigue as possible. I want little to no fatigue in what I'm doing, and I want to just really hammer home just great form, great technique. It's a day where I just focus on the skills I'm training. It was a great workout. I had a lot of fun. That's one of the main things with working out. I had a lot of fun. I was safe. I don't feel like I overdone anything. We'll see how I feel in the morning when I wake up. Am I right, guys? Um, anyways, though, safe. I had fun today. It was a nice sunny day. I think it was around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Around 19, 20 degrees Celsius, if I remember the conversion correctly. But what I was going to say, along with nice weather and a nice fun training day, I'm getting pretty lean. This morning when I woke up, I weighed myself, and I was 203.5 pounds. And those of you, that go by kilograms, just take that number and divide it by 2.2. And I apologize for my laziness, but that'll tell you, my weight in kilograms. I'm 5 feet 11 inches tall. Let's see, that is 60? No, that's 71 inches tall. So just multiply that number by 2.54, and that will tell you my height in centimeters. And then you can divide that by 100, and that will tell you my height in meters. Anyways, this isn't math class. We're all about calisthenics here on the channel. Let's see, what all did I want to talk about today? I think I've done really well on the workout, like I was saying, and I think part of why I really enjoyed my workout so much today, other than just getting to train all these skills that I like, is I made a lot of practice. And I know I've been saying that a lot lately, but it's true. Today, I think I broke, when it comes to PRs, we have current PRs and we have all-time PRs. PR, of course, being, personal records. I think today I definitely broke several current PRs, with where I'm at currently in my training. But honestly, I think I also broke a few all-time PRs. Even when I was lighter, I used to be around 185 pounds when I used to train MMA, and I wasn't quite as busy. I wasn't a pharmacy student at the time, but I was a smaller guy to keep things simple, and I was probably it's probably when I was my fittest. But that does not mean that was when I was my strongest. Even though I'm heavier now and I have more body fat, I have a lot more abilities now than I did then. And I think that comes down to me having a lot more strength and power. But it also comes down to me having a lot more experience now than I had back then. I've been practicing this stuff off and on, mostly on. There's been some times where I've had some injuries and I've had to take some breaks, but off and on, I've been training now for probably about 15 years. Almost 31 years old. I started training originally when I was 14. Severely injured myself and I had to take, I didn't have to take, but I think I chose to take 2 years off. And I came back at 16 years old. And I originally started with just some traditional martial arts. And then I came back with martial art, like traditional martial arts, strength training. And then I kind of grew from there. It just flourished, looking back on myself. But I'll try to talk less about that and a bit more about what I'm doing. I'm just warming up. And if you saw just a few seconds ago there, when I was laying on my back, I was showing that you want to be able to have what's called posterior pelvic tilt. You want to really crunch your abs so that when you're laying flat on the ground, when you do those leg lifts, you can't pass your hand under your back. Your back should be flush with the ground. And you might be thinking, oh, I'm not exactly trying to get good at leg lifts, but this is just a great warm-up skill. And if you get good at that posterior pelvic tilt, it really applies well to a lot of other skills in calisthenics. And one of them is one you've already seen me do there just a few seconds ago, and that's handstand. And it may sound crazy, you're wanting to crunch your abs while you're trying to do a handstand. But if you can really tighten that core up and have that posterior pelvic tilt, that really helps you to maintain balance. It's kind of like a cooked spaghetti noodle versus a raw spaghetti noodle, or a pasta noodle, or however you refer to things like that. But anyways, if you have that posterior pelvic tilt and your core is tight, it really makes holding a handstand a lot easier versus a lot more difficult when you don't do that. And you'll see several attempts today, because there's several times where my body's inverted today. You'll see times where I start out with great form, great technique, and then over the course of my handstand, over the course of my inversion, you can literally just watch my core relax. And as soon as my core relaxes, I start to look like a banana, and I lose the skill at that moment. So posterior pelvic tilt is great for so many skills in calisthenics. Even what you see me doing here, these one-arm block-offs. And it's not just that either, just regular pull-ups. You need to have a good posterior pelvic tilt. But anyways, I'll quit rambling about that. But definitely, try to keep that in mind. Here we're doing a really slow and controlled, just really focusing on power here. Power and great technique. Really squeezing it at the top, trying to get as high in the range of motion as I can. Really hanging on to it. Really want to get everything out of that. And like I said in that last video, anytime you use assistance to make something easier, that is your opportunity to milk that exercise, to milk that skill for everything you can get out of it. Here's something I did. I really impressed myself today. I think this is one of my all-time best handstand presses. It wasn't just the press, it was also how I came down. It took a lot out of me, but I feel like I really accomplished something here. Watch this dismount. Yeah, that's something I definitely need to keep practicing. But that was very difficult and challenging. But that'll really, that'll play on into great straight arm strength, which is something you need for this skill, the planche. Try just a quick full extension to a full planche, and I think it was great that I did that, but I definitely have some, some training to go before I'll be able to hit a full planche. But you always got to constantly be pushing yourself. You got to always be surprising your muscles. We are adaptation machines, and we can use that to our advantage. But if you're not careful, you'll also quickly get stuck in plateaus. So you have to always be trying to push yourself over the edge in a very controlled manner is, the detail to keep in mind there. We want to push ourselves, but you want to do it carefully and with great technique, and that's why I'm always talking about that. Because if we try to push ourselves and we don't do it correctly, we're going to get hurt, and I talk from experience. Look at this human flag today. I'm getting a lot better at these. What I'm really struggling with right now in vertical grip is that my body wants to rotate around the bar, and you'll see after this one here when I get down, I think I show what's happening. But like, I have the strength to hold myself up on both sides. Let's see what I'm talking about. My body's kind of swinging around the bar, and I don't know if that's improper technique or if I'm grabbing the bar wrong or what, but I decided to go to the horizontal grip. This is something I've always been decent at. I wouldn't call myself great at this by any means, but figured I'd try this today. And something, this is my first time kicking up like this with a grip so close to the ground. And my right shoulder didn't like that too good. I'm not sure exactly what I did wrong there. Looking back on this though, and seeing what I did here on the other side, I think I need to walk out and extend my body and kick up from there. I think I tried to kick up too hard on that right side, and I think that it caused me to have some sloppy form, and I think that's why my right shoulder didn't like that. But anyways, try to keep that in mind on core day. But here's a slow muscle up attempt on the bar. For whatever reason, I just randomly decided, today I wasn't going to try it on the rings where I've been practicing it, and I was instead going to try it on the bar. And I actually really liked this. I felt like I'd done decently well, even though I haven't been training this. So something I did different today, and you'll see it here in this next clip, I show it. But my hands are just inside shoulder width. I'm really focusing on keeping my neck stuck out there. I'm making sure that my elbows are down to my sides and that they're not flared out. And I'm also letting my chest kind of gently touch the bar. But you'll see what I'm talking about right here. Bringing my hands in, really getting a good false grip. And I'm trying to go straight up and touch my chest to the bar. And then when your chest touches the bar, and there, don't have your elbows flared out, have them straight down to your sides. And just really try to extend at the neck. And when your chest touches the bar, you try to maneuver it around the bar. But like anything else in calisthenics, that is much more easier said than done. But here you'll see a negative, and I feel like this negative just was incredible. Because this is not something I've been training. And look at how slow and controlled this one and that previous clip. So I may start, for a few weeks, trying the slow muscle up on the bar instead of on the rings. And, I may learn something here on the bar that'll really carry over into the rings. But here's front lever. I decided I'd try a straddle, and I actually done pretty good on that. And then I quickly bridged into one leg attempts. And you'll see there I was a little weak on that right side. So in this next clip here, on this next attempt, I go straight to the one legs. Well, I go tucked to get my balance, and then go to the one legs, and I start with the right leg. So the goal of this second attempt is mostly time under tension. But I think I'm going to start training front lever with these one leg extensions. I think that's the progression that I am just right at the edge of. I can hold it for a few seconds on each side, and then bridging down into this advanced tucked, and then tucked, of course, for that time under tension that I'm always talking about. Here is my handstand push-up attempts for the day. I decided I was going to try them on the Bosu, just playing around to see how it felt, and I actually really liked this. I wasn't trying to do a full push-up here. I was trying to do negatives instead, and despite my little bit of a questionable dismount there, I really, like I was saying, I really liked how this felt. I really like the Bosu. It's a BOSU. If you don't have one of these, or if your gym doesn't have one, you can order them online. Look at that. I really like these though. I think they're a great piece of equipment to have to help you build a handstand. And then, but then, I figured I would try a third attempt just where I got rid of the Bosu and went back to flat ground to see how I did. And I'm not really sure how I feel about this. I was a little sloppy. I had to chase it down, but I did catch it. And after I caught it, look at that. There's a handstand push-up. There's a negative, and then I lost it. But when I lost it, like I'm always saying, you gotta know how to bail out of a handstand. You gotta know how to roll. Don't ever fall flat on your back, because that is not going to feel good, and you could potentially really hurt yourself. So always practice those ninja rolls, like you see people that do parkour do. Always practice those before you start training a freestanding handstand. Here's a little bit of freestyle. I done a bar hop over a back spin. Careful to put most of the weight on my hands and not my knees to protect my ACLs. But then I use that to get into the full back lever. If I mix some things together in freestyle, it allows me to practice several different things in one attempt. And there's a lot of different skills in calisthenics, so that really cuts down on the number of clips I have, as well as the time of this video, as well as the what I'm asking of my body. So there is a Korean transition straight into a bar muscle up, and then at the top of the bar muscle up, that's my first attempt for the day of the 360 spin over. It's just something I've just recently started trying. I think this is my third attempt in my life, third attempt overall, or third day of trying it, should I say, in my entire life. But this is something I think is really cool, and it's something I really want to learn. So I gave this a few attempts today, and I'll, these are a little more drawn out than before when I showed the speed clips, but I'm kind of showing on some of these what I'm doing different versus the previous clip, just to help keep track of my progress over time. Yeah, so really trying to get that momentum. I'm a big boy. I'm 203.5 pounds this morning, like I was saying, but on this one I'm going to try to, instead of going to the hands, I'm going to try to go to the forearms. And I only tried this once today. I didn't really like how that, how it worked out. I feel like you're really hitting your forearms hard on the bar. Maybe I'm just being a big baby, but I was thinking I was going to try to extend my forearms forward more. But like I said, I'm a big baby, and I decided to go back to what I was previously doing, but I'm going to try to rotate my hands around the bar more. I'm going to try to reach around the bar some more and see how that impacts my spin. And I feel like that really helped my spin, honestly. I felt like I was almost there. Here's the stretch out. I have to do another spin, but I really feel like that, trying to reach the hands or spin the hands around the bar as you do the spin over, I feel like that really helped me get higher on the other side. But this is definitely a skill that I don't have, like, I have little to no experience with. I've been watching some of the more advanced athletes and some of the things that they recommend, and it's definitely something that I'm interested in, though, and I'll keep training over time. It's very low fatigue. Look at how lean I'm looking today. I definitely still have a bit of belly fat, but I'm definitely leaning up. I think if I could get down to about even 195, but especially if I could get down to 190, I think I would look really good. I would be, very lean at that point with the amount of muscle, mass that I have on my body. But like I was saying, I really like the 360 spin over. The idea is you spin around the bar so fast that you can come back up on the other side, like the top of a muscle up, and I'll keep playing with that, and we'll see what we can do with it over time. But like I was saying, I'm stretching out, shaking things out, trying to loosen up. It was a really fun workout today. A beautiful day. Look at that sky. Sunshine was nice. I had on the sunscreen and then the sun shirt to protect me from the UV rays. Was about room temperature outside, temperature-wise. And everything felt nice, and I made lots of progress, and I learned a lot of things. Not only about calisthenics, but about myself as well. But I think we're at the end of the workout for today. Please post any questions or comments you have below. Take care of yourself, and happy training. Bye-bye, guys.